What's going on, all you freedom-loving patriots out there? Craig Gibson here with Sons of Liberty, and this is Constitution Coffee and Service. So let's get this one kicked off with our coffee of the week. It is none other than Overwatch Coffee Shop's American Pride. This is our whiskey and bacon flavored coffee, and you might ask yourself, why? America, that's why. All right, I had to do it. Okay. Anyway, we're going to be brewing this up all week. And honestly, we went with this one because right now, we're at the end of the month of June. We've got all this pride out there. But you know what I'm not hearing enough of? I'm not hearing enough people say that they have American pride. Regardless of religion, regardless of nationality, regardless of their skin color, regardless of sexual orientation. I'm not hearing enough about American pride. So we're going to brew up some American pride this week. Come on in and give it a try. A lot of people like it. Some don't, and that's okay. We've got plenty of other flavors to choose from. Also, later today, we should be getting in our new shipment, which means we're going to be restocked on Java Grenade. We're going to be restocked on American Pride, Code 4, Protectors of the Constitution, Ladder Company, Hunter's Call. We are also going to be getting in Tachycardia and Sheepdog, 2 new flavors. So it's a good day. More coffee. More coffee equals good day. Okay. All right, Article 6. Article 6. So basically this article was put in there that said that, all debts, contracted and engagements entered into prior to the adoption of the Constitution would be valid against the United States under this Constitution as it was under the Confederation. Okay. So basically, the Constitution and the laws of the United States basically say that pursuant to this, that all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, so this would be after the ratification of the Constitution, or of this Constitution, that it should be the supreme law of the land, and judges would have to abide by it, states would have to abide by it, as long as none of it went contrary to the Constitution of the United States. And then we get to the last part of this. I mean, it's a very simple, very, very straightforward article that senators and representatives and, members of the state, several states' legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the individual states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But there would be no religious test. Go ahead, say it. It's a lot of words on writing, or on paper, right? A lot of words written on paper. It is obvious means very little to so many of our politicians, so many of our judges. It's crazy. There's no accountability when they break their oath. And that is why, like last week we talked about Article 5 and we talked about ratification and the Convention of the States. And that is why it is so important that we do this, because we need to make these politicians accountable for their actions. Because they've had no accountability. They have no term limit on them, other than when the people finally say they've had enough. Or if they go ahead and retire or die in office, like a few have. That's not right. And we, the people, it's time we take the power back. We need to take the power back, and we need to get this country back on the right footing, get it back in the right direction. And that means holding our politicians accountable. That means setting term limits. That means having actual consequences for not upholding your oath of office. So, now as far as religious tests go, First Amendment, which of course we'll be diving into next week, and we've talked about before, First Amendment, one of the things in there is the freedom of religion. So because we have that freedom of religion, we can't set a religious standard for our politicians, and that's fine, because the country as a whole, when you have people of different faiths, different opinions, or non-faiths coming together for the good of the American people, not for the good of their own pocketbooks or just for the good of their state, but for the good of the American people as a whole, that's a good thing. All right? So absolutely, we need to get a convention of the states going. We've got to get it done, put on paper, ratified, and move forward. Regardless of all the issues we've got going on right now, things from the past, things during the present, things that will come in the future. You know what? This is still the greatest nation on earth, and it's time we start holding people accountable and make sure it stays that great nation. There are people that will tell you, oh, well, there's more freedom in country, Switzerland, or I don't know, pick a country. And they'll talk about how there's so much more freedom, but yet there's not. And, right now, especially, we hear about how racist our country is, how bad our country is. Well, if we were so bad, if we were so racist, why do people die to get here? Why do people give up everything to come here, legally and illegally? Why do people risk everything to come here? Because this still is the greatest nation on the earth. So that was a very short article. So let's jump on to Article 7. Let's just wrap this up completely and dive into First Amendment next week. So basically, since I kind of lost you for a minute there. All right, so since I was only planning on doing Article 6, well, just kind of read over this. All right, so Article 7, the ratification of the conventions of 9 states. All right, remember last week we were talking about in order to call the convention, we needed 34 states. In order to ratify, we needed 38 states. Could you imagine being able to do all this with only 9 states? That would be cool. We would already be there. We would already be there. But, okay, so the ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states, so ratifying the same. Done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states present the 17th day of September in the year of our Lord 1787, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 12th, in witness whereof we have hereunto subscribed our names. To look back on the history, to look back on the very thing people are trying to destroy right now. These people gave up and risked everything in hopes of creating a better nation, a more perfect union. And to see their names, to know that, some of these guys were farmers, business people, owning little shops. And they risked everything because they didn't have to leave a country to build one. But what they did have to do was, in secrecy, they had to start working this out while under the thumb of a tyrannical government. That's why they felt it was so important that we have this Constitution. That was why they felt it's so important that every American be willing to stand up, to fight, and to die for it if need be, in order to prevent a repeat of their lives. You know, and we've fallen short several times. I mean, we had a civil war where we had brother against brother, family against family, American against American. But you know what? Since then, we've still stumbled and we've had some issues. So it's time that we stop. We stop with all the hyphenated names. All right, Mexican American, Irish American, African American. We need to stand up as Americans. Brothers and sisters, neighbors, friends, family. We need to stand up. We need to stop letting outside influence divide us. Because as long as we let that happen, we will remain divided. And if anybody out there thinks for one moment that we cannot or will not ever have another civil war, you're kidding yourself. You are totally kidding yourself. Because we are so close already. So, something to think about. And this is why it is so important that everybody read the Constitution, understand the Constitution, learn the Constitution, know what your rights and responsibilities are, know what the responsibilities of our politicians is supposed to be. Because if you don't know what they are, you can't hold them accountable. So, next week we dive into the First Amendment. And now we get to have some fun. Talking about the amendments and looking at some of the violations that have taken place, especially just right here in the year 2020. This week, still, our service portion, it goes out to the men and women on the streets trying to protect this country, fighting what feels like a losing battle at times, getting no love, no respect, being demonized because of their job. You know what? Men and women in law enforcement out there, our firefighters, our EMS personnel that are out there running these calls without the safety, being told by mayors that they have to go out without safety equipment, go face rioters without safety equipment. Really? Really? Okay. Talking about cutting budgets, defunding our police officers. Guys, this has to end. So yeah, we're definitely going to put them out there in the service this week. And, you know, we will back and support them every chance we get and every step of the way. All right, guys, next week brings First Amendment. As always, faith, not fear. Learn before we repeat history. All right, guys, take care.